It'll be 1 to go this time by. Coming to the green, buddy, coming to the green. Let's go get him. Go, 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 go!
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway.
Bob Margolis, Yahoo Sports. This is a numbers question. One of your largest owners, Richard Childress, has said on many occasions he sees the sport heading towards 11 owners with 4 cars each. Several other owners have seen that model, and they feel that is a very doable model in the near future as well. I'd like you to comment on that, and then also as a follow-up question, will you encourage owners to, because realistically there's a handful of owners or less who can really vie for the championship, will you encourage new owners to come into the sport who may not necessarily vie for the championship but may find a sponsor or two that are willing to cherry pick 15 or 18 races and run a limited schedule in order to satisfy a sponsor and also help keep the fields at 43? Two-part question, 11 and 4, and then the other one.
Yeah. Well, let me say that we're going to be very aggressive at trying to recruit and attract new owners, and I don't subscribe to this idea that you'll have to have 4 teams, and that's where we were going a few years ago, and we're going to be looking at anything we can do from a policy standpoint or the rules standpoint. And part of the new car concept, and we'll see if we achieve this, is to bring the barrier of entry down, meaning the cars are cheaper to operate, to own. There are less things you can do with it, so there's less expertise you need to buy or have to field a competitive team. I know the jury's still out on that, but that's our goal. And if there are any other things, and there will be, because that's something that Steve O'Donnell and his team are studying, what can we do to attract new owners who will field competitive teams in the future? Because that's what makes us work. The more competition, the better competition, the better we're going to be. So we will be. It starts with me, and it starts with our organization, knowing that's important, and then making sure that we do everything we can.
Jorge Mendoza, FoxSports.com. I think it's safe to assume that you will say that the competition is healthy on the track, and you're happy with the competition, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that's a good point you made.
What do you say to the fans then, whether it's online, on radio, in the infield, who are saying that it's not the same competition and they're not happy? They're not seeing, side-by-side battles. They're not seeing the action that we used to see with the old car or 10 years ago.
Well, listen, we know that some of the drivers have said, that they didn't think it was as fun or as exciting, and that tends to carry on into how our fans think. We understand that. That's a natural thing, and some of the drivers were struggling with the car. And then there were some of the same drivers who weren't struggling a year ago. So it's that was very anticipated. I would tell you, start with Mike Helton and our whole family is built around making sure it's the most exciting competitive racing in the world. That's what all the other problems and issues and challenges and policies and all the rest of it are all part of the sport. But the reality of getting that right and how important it is and how closely we view it, we will make sure one way or the other. And the races have been on balance very good, and we'll see what happens tonight. They keep getting. My own view is they're getting better every week. As I said in my opening remarks, more teams are getting it figured out, and we'll satisfy our fans because that's what we've done for 60 years.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. To follow up on a couple of questions, first of all, with Jensen, have you spoke with other international manufacturers, automakers, if something should happen to what used to be the big three? Secondly, to follow up on Mr. Margolis's question, is franchising a part of our future? Will that at least give these owners, the ones that have been here a while, some sort of guarantee that there will be stock in their future?
Well, the teams have had a lot of financial interest of late with private equity and other groups coming in, making investments at rather large. I was happy to see it, rather large valuations for them and pumping of capital. Most recently, of course, with Richard Petty and Petty Enterprises. So I would say there's no shortage of interest in financially rewarding the team owners that have good teams and the ones that want to take advantage of. Some don't have an interest in taking advantage of that if it's an advantage. You know, that, I don't know if that answers your question, but you know, we.
On NASCAR's end, is that something? You know, you talked about Steve O'Donnell and et al. Have you guys kicked around models, potential models? You know, patterning perhaps after the NFL as to what would be, you know.
Oh, sure. We do that every year. You're talking about franchising and sorting that out. The reality is that closes off competition. That's what it does. And so we have tended to look at that not in a positive way, because the previous question centered around getting new owners in, not closing off all potential owners. So, and then this idea about what value does a team owner who's paid their dues and been in NASCAR for a long time really have, which was asked 4 or 5 years ago quite a bit, is kind of being answered by the investments and the various firms, private equity firms that have come in and thought they had a lot of value and have paid for that. So we will always look, if we thought franchising would add more owners than subtract, or made the competition better, or we had to reward somebody that needed to be rewarded, we would of course look at it, but it doesn't necessarily do any of the above. And it's an easy thing to talk about and say, well, they ought to just do it, because then they'd be like, you know, well, we're not like we are. There's many portions of NASCAR that are like the NBA or the NFL, and then there are some stark differences, and there are differences for a reason. The way we're structured, the way it works for the race cars on the track versus teams, and so on. It just but it is something we've looked at many times. I've looked at it personally. I've looked at probably a dozen different takes on that and franchising, but it's just something that at this point we don't think is in our best interest.
Mike Embry, NASCAR Scene. Brian, what can you tell us about your investigation into some of the allegations in the lawsuit, and would you anticipate that the 2 officials who've been suspended will be returned? Well,
we're almost completed with it, and you got to remember it centers on personnel. So whether it's misconduct potentially by Miss Grant or someone else that is being investigated, we wouldn't be able to get into that anyway, into the details, because that violates our own policy. We got to give privacy to the employees that work at NASCAR. But I will tell you that you know, we've been, as we have been in these kinds of circumstances and situations in the past, we've been very thorough. We've talked to, I don't know, 25 or 30 people, and I mean really talked and really reviewed and really investigated. So we have a pretty good handle on what we think the claims are, and some of the conduct of Ms. Grant and others, and that's really all we can say. And then of course it's also in a civil lawsuit that has a whole other set of challenges for us to be openly talking about things that may be litigated in front of a jury. So we'll have to sit tight on that.